What's up, everybody? Couch Mouse here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down how to never miss a headshot in patch 3.05 in this ultimate aim guide, where I'm going to be breaking it down step by step exactly what you need to do to improve your aim. If you are whiffing, or if you're just not as cracked as you want to be, this is the perfect guide for you, so watch to the end. And go to the GameLeap website for in-depth advanced weapon guides over every single weapon and map guides, so you can truly dominate and rank up rank after rank this act. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, here's the thing. A lot of times when people are making aim guides, people oversimplify aiming when actually you can divide aiming into 4 separate sections or parts in Valorant. The first one is A, flicking and mouse control, B, counter strafing and movement inaccuracy, C, burst and spray recoil control, and D, crosshair placement and map awareness. Now, you cannot join these together on the same umbrella of aim, and often your aim is going to be bad because you're bad at some of these things and you don't know exactly what they are or how to improve on them. So let's break them down one at a time and tell you how to master them. Let's talk about the first thing, mouse control. This is going to be your raw mechanical input into your mouse, you know, moving up, down, left, right. That is your raw mechanical input. Now, this is generally just the mechanical skill that you come with as far as aiming is concerned, without any of the other factors in Valorant, like maps, like movement and accuracy, like the recoil of specific guns. And oftentimes people could have really good mouse control from other games coming from a different first-person shooter, but because they don't have any of the fundamentals in the other categories, their aim is still bad for Valorant. The first thing that you're going to want to learn is trigger discipline, which means do not fire until you're on your target's head. It seems pretty obvious, but many times when I VOD review low-ranked players, I see them firing far too early. What you're going to want to do is practice large flicks towards enemies and then micro adjustments towards the head, and then practice taps and short bursts. You're also going to want to practice killing bots with the first 2 bullets in a rifle, where the first 2 bullets in a spray are typically very accurate, and you can actually kill 2 separate people with the first and second shot if you instantly flick to the second target. This is something you could practice in the bot range. Now, in general, those of you who have never played FPSs on PC before, your mouse control might be lacking, and you're going to need to put in some amount of practice and work into things like aim labs or Kovacs. This is going to allow you to work on things like tracking and flicking. But if you have a pretty decent grasp of mouse control, let's go on to the next stage of aiming, or the next part of aiming, and that's movement inaccuracy in Valorant. This is the forced stopping of your movement before you fire in order to be accurate with a weapon. While some weapons you can run and gun with, of course, the majority of weapons, specifically rifles, you're gonna have to counter strafe. Now, one of the big mistakes that I see most common is it's a psychological thing where people feel pressured and they are slightly moving because they're scared they're gonna get hit. So instead of committing to a counter strafe, committing to standing still and firing, oftentimes they half move, half shoot, and it means that you are not being accurate at all and you're actually dying when you would have just won the fight if you would have just commit. And it's a psychological thing that you have to acknowledge in order to overcome. Now, if you're having a really hard time nailing this down, I highly suggest turning on movement inaccuracy crosshair so you can see exactly when you are accurate and inaccurate. And when starting off, many of you are going to be far better off actually just holding down the opposite button instead of tapping it. For example, when you walk to the right, you're pressing that D key instead of tapping the A key and letting go like you would with a regular counter strafe. All you're going to be doing is just holding that A key, and you're still holding that D key. You hold that A key, you stop moving completely, then you fire. This is a good way to kind of get in the habit of doing this. Yes, this takes a little bit longer and it kind of is a little bit awkward if I'm being honest, but over time you'll start to get the feeling for when your bullets are being accurate and when they're not, and you need to make sure that you're doing this right every time before you ramp up the speed, and then it's just going to become second nature. Now, this is also going to teach you the importance of peaking angles to maximize counter strafing. Essentially, every time you're trying to clear a site, you're clearing from left to right. You're moving with the A and D key to clear all these angles. You're never walking forward or diagonally, because not only are you moving like not very far across an enemy's screen because you're moving diagonally instead of straight left to right across their screen, it's also much more difficult to counter strafe when you're not moving directly left to right. In fact, it's nearly impossible in some circumstances. So you're going to want to make sure that you maximize your counter strafing and you're very specifically and systematically clearing a site. Now, the next thing that we need to talk about, the third aim part, is the recoil control in Valorant. Now, this is weapon based, so aim labs ain't gonna help you control your recoil when the recoil of weapons are very Valorant specific, and of course, the the weapons are all gonna be different recoil patterns for the most part. Now, we all know that hitting that first shot is incredibly important. If you go watch any pro or streamer, they convert on an extremely large amount of sprays. You'll see that where they typically still get the kill, even if they don't get that first shot headshot. Now, controlling recoil is something that you're gonna have to legitimately practice, and I highly suggest practicing it in free-for-all and the training room. If you miss that first headshot and you're consistent with your spray, you can still get the kill by hitting the next 4 shots in the body, even if you miss that headshot, and that's still going to give you a bottom or a bare level of impact, even if you don't always hit those headshots every single time. You don't want to just be all or nothing. Now, something that a lot of people do that is wrong is fall into that crouch crutch, where every single time they fight an enemy, they're always crouching, and this is problematic for many reasons. One, it makes you a non-moving target, which means it's very difficult for you to kill multiple enemies, and honestly, crouching should be a last-ditch effort if you've already tried to control every bit of your recoil, or you're in a situation where you're suddenly being pushed by someone else that is right on top of you, and you don't have time to move and you don't have time to reset. The next thing that you need to understand is if you're crouching all the time to control your recoil, you're actually not spray controlling enough. You need to be pulling down far more on your weapon and practicing with the weapons that you're using so that you can control your spray without feeling like you need to crouch every time. Now, of course, every weapon is slightly different, so all the major weapons that you plan on using, you need to be appropriately putting in the practice into that recoil control. Remember, the crosshair placement is going to get you those headshots. We're going to talk about that in a second, but overall recoil control is going to get you more consistent kills when you're not getting those one-taps every single time. Now, the last thing that we need to talk about is map awareness. Now, some people are going to chalk up crosshair placement as simply aiming head level and not just looking at people's feet because you have a feet fetish. No, that's not what crosshair placement is. Crosshair placement is actually much more about the map and player awareness. What angles do you specifically have to clear? What angles do enemies traditionally hold? These are things that you have to visualize and imagine that an enemy could be in these areas, and then you're systematically clear them, especially if you don't have information that they couldn't possibly be there. Of course, if you have information that they're not there, then you can just run past the angle, you don't have to clear it. But in general, if you're trying to take a point, you need to be imagining that an enemy could hold a wide variety of angles. Now, this is where kind of everything comes together, because you imagine the angles that enemies could hold, you peek them systematically one at a time, you use your counter strafing, and you're already pre-aiming the angle, so if they're there, you counter strafe, you see them, boom, easy kill. Now, you're gonna be able to use your mouse control to account for unnatural variance, like someone holding an off angle. So the better you are at flicking, the better your mouse control is. That can heavily make up for people like holding in the middle of the site, especially like a Jet holding right in the middle because she's holding an off angle, trying to get a kill and dash away. This is why you see someone like Tens really can make up for these unnatural variants because his mechanical skill is so damn high. So the higher your mouse control is, the more you're gonna be able to kill people that are holding these unnatural angles and for these unnatural situations. However, the majority of your consistent impact and value is going to be due to your counter strafing and your map awareness, specific peeking angles one at a time where enemies are likely to be. And this is something that a lot of people don't get right. They worry way too much about that mouse control section when that's more for the irregularity, not the consistency. And you can still get consistent kills, honestly, without having insane amounts of mouse control. Now, ultimately, all these pieces are going to rely on one another, and one piece can definitely pick up the other, but it will be at the cusp of severely holding you back in that category. So it's a good idea to go through each of these one at a time and make sure you have mastered, or at the very least become competent at each and every one. Slowly but surely rise each and every one of these up together. Now, if you have any questions, definitely let me know down below. And if you want more in-depth guides, we have VOD reviews about aiming on the GameLeap website down below. So if you want to aim like a god, go check it out right now. But thank you so much for coming by. I hope you enjoyed the video. I love y'all faces, and I'll see you next time.